Hey there, welcome back to Brian Keene's Secret Histories. I am, of course, your host, Brian Keene, nursing a little bit of a cold, so my apologies if my voice sounds off. If you're just tuning in for the first time on Patreon or later on YouTube, um, in this series, what we do is we sit down here on the floor in my office with a shaky cam iPhone, and I talk about each of my books in the order that they were published. I talk about what went into their creation, uh, you know, anything of historic importance. Did it hit the bestseller list? Did it win an award, etc.? Um, where its place is among fans and the audience. If there were any ever, limited editions or foreign translations or anything like that. Today, we're talking about Jack's Magic Beans, 11,000 word novella that, believe it or not, has not had many editions. It has never had its own limited edition. Uh, I have included it in a few short story collections over the years because, at its length, it can qualify as a novella or a short story. It's in that gray zone that they call novelette. So there are a few collections that I have included it in that have gotten the signed limited edition treatment. But the story itself never has. And there are actually very few editions published. This is the first edition, published by a company called Creeping Hemlock. And this was what they called their sneak peek edition. It was going to be part of Unto Dust, Tales of the Apocalypse, which was like a whole line that they were doing. And this was published in 2007. Now, you're saying, well, why haven't I heard of Creeping Hemlock? Well, we have talked earlier in this series about the indie explosion. You see, horror as a marketing category died off in the 90s. Particularly in the mass market. When it did, horror turned to the small press. The small press at that time was indeed very small. And through the late 90s and the early 2000s, the small press really rose to prominence. That's when you saw publishers like Cemetery Dance and Subterranean and Gauntlet and PS Publishing putting out books that were on par with their mainstream competitors. It's when you saw, startups like Delirium, Bloodletting Press, etc., come along. Thunderstorm Books came along at the very tail end of this. And believe it or not, Thunderstorm Books is one of the last of that wave of indies to still remain standing. Because much like today, it seemed like every other day somebody was starting up an indie small press, an indie publisher. And much like today, things were great for a while, and then we started heading into an economic recession. And literally within the space of 90 days, I would say 90% of those indie publishers had folded. Food for thought, folks. Food for thought. This edition, I don't know how rare it is. I know a lot of them were printed. I rarely see it on eBay. But I also never see it at signings. Like, you guys aren't bringing it up to me at signings. The version you're bringing up to me is this one, the Deadite Press edition. This was one of my earlier Deadite Press titles, and it kind of started a big online argument between my older fans and my newer fans, the millennials who were, really starting to discover my stuff. The millennials loved Deadite's extreme horror covers. The older fans hated it. They wanted the old style leisure covers. I like this one because Jack's Magic Beans is absolutely an extreme horror novella. And this is absolutely a scene from the novella. And I like this cover. I think it tells you exactly what you're getting into with this book. This cover acts as its own trigger warning, which is nice. As for the book itself, I wrote this right after GHOUL. Now, if you go back in this series and you watch the video for GHOUL, you'll know that that was an emotionally harrowing book for me to write. So I needed to have some fun again. I needed to cleanse my palate, cleanse my muse's palate, so to speak, and just write something raw and fun, something gleeful. And that's exactly what this was for me. And it served its purpose well. For the longest time, all I had was the opening sentence of this book. And don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't read it. But I am going to read you the opening sentence. Or actually, I'll let you read the opening sentence. The lettuce started talking to Ben Mahoney halfway through his shift at Save-A-Lot. For months and months and months, all I had was that sentence. I had it written down in a Moleskine notebook, and I had no idea who Ben Mahoney was, why the lettuce was talking to him, why the lettuce had chosen to talk to Ben. Indeed, why was this lettuce talking at all? Had no story idea to go with it. All I had was that opening sentence. And then Cassandra, my wife at the time, had mentioned to me that a business associate of hers referred to Prozac as magic beans. And I thought, oh, what a great, term, magic beans, because, they make you feel better. They're magic. And the next day, the story started putting itself together in my head. And I remembered this opening sentence that I had in one of my notebooks, and I pulled it out, and I'm like, yes, this all fits together. It's like a puzzle piece. And I wrote this one in, I think it took me 2 weeks total. The entire first draft was written at my cabin in West Virginia in one weekend. And then I brought it home, and I did a second draft and a third draft. I think it took me 2 weeks total, all 3 drafts. Very proud of this one. I've always liked this one. I like it when people tell me that they like this one, because it kind of gets forgotten, when you've got a bibliography as big as mine. There's only ever been one foreign translation, and that is in German. German hardcover, German paperback. These are still shrink wrapped. I've never opened them. That's really all I can tell you about Jack's Magic Beans. Had a lot of fun with this one. I did not have a lot of fun with the book that we're going to get into next time, and that is Shades. So we will see you then. Thanks for watching. All of you on Patreon, I appreciate you. All of you who patiently wait for this to come to YouTube, hey, maybe check out my Patreon. $5 a month gets you all of these secret histories early, and literally tens of thousands of other bits of content. Short stories, entire novels, other videos, all kinds of stuff. But if you don't have the means to pay $5 a month, that is cool. That's fine. I appreciate you watching here on YouTube as well. So we will see you next time with Shades. Peace.